From saving his pennies to get art supplies during his teens to being a featured cartoonist at the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and DC Comics, and other famous publications, Mark Brewer is a firm believer that with the right mindset, everyone has the power to become what they want. You can find more of his work at markbrewer.com, but for now, please join us as we discuss when can you call yourself an artist, how to get inspired and avoid art block, pros of being a hobbyist versus a professional artist, and tips on making money from your art hobby. Want to be part of the show? Then send in your questions or topics you'd like to see covered to our email at hello@etchrlab.com. If you send us an audio recording, we might include it in the episode. Hi, I'm Anya, and this is Make More Art, a podcast by Etchr, meant to inspire you to keep on creating. Now let's hear from our guest. Mark, let's start, because I read all the information on your website. You have a very impressive career. I mean, you worked for big name clients. You have Nickelodeons, you have the New York Times, you have a bunch of names that I'm like, oh my goodness, who is this guy? Because when we chatted a while ago, and even now, you are so humble and honest, and it's so easy to talk to you. And then I was checking your website, and I'm like, who's this dude? So please take us a little bit back and tell us about the time that art became a thing for you. When was that? How young were you?
Yeah, that was probably 10, 11, 12. I would deliver newspapers and save my money, and at the end of the week, I would go get acrylic paints from this little hobby store in town, and I painted, in acrylics on canvas, and I wanted to paint like Bob Ross, and I loved the way he was just very simple. He made these beautiful pictures, and that's really how it started. And I mean, I've always been drawing, but that's when it really sort of got serious, because I thought maybe I could, and I don't know what 12-year-old or whatever thinks that they can make money with their paintings. I must have been pretty proud of my work or whatever, but I did. I thought maybe I could make money on that, and at some point it morphed into, drawing, and I met a lot of really fabulous artists who are so talented, that took me under their wing and helped me learn how to become, a better artist. And for that, I'm grateful, because without these individuals, I don't think I would have been able to make a career in this. So.
I'm glad that you said that. Like, what 12-year-old thinks they can make a living out of art. Impressively, I think it's really common. Because when I was a kid, I don't know how old I was. I remember I was, 6, 7, or 8 when Sailor Moon was, airing over here in Portugal. And I loved Sailor Moon, as did all boys and girls. Like, finally, a magical girl anime that even guys like. And the Power Rangers, I loved that. And I was writing this comic and illustrating it that was basically a mashup between Power Rangers and Sailor Moon. That's what it was, a total ripoff. And I was certain that I was going to make it into a comic book and make money and would help pay bills at home. And I told my grandmother, one day I'm going to be famous, I'm going to have this comic book, I'm going to help you pay the bills. And my grandmother just scoffed, and now I understand why. But it's like, when we're kids, everything is possible in our minds. Actually, I do think that, and it's not embarrassing or weird for us to think, if someone else can do that, we can do it. We're young. We'll just, I don't know. Where do you think that comes from, and why do we lose it in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that as we get older, there's insecurities inevitably build up from all around us. People who have their own insecurities are inadvertently passing them on to us, and maybe they're planting seeds, and some of those seeds sprout in our heads, and some of them don't. And, the whole, you've heard people say starving artist. Boy, I think I don't like that seed. It haunted me for the longest time, and I'm done with that now. I've paid my bills with my art. I'm very grateful, but I can't imagine being young and hearing that all over again. Oh, a starving artist, you want to be a starving artist, huh? It's like, boy, that's don't put that in a kid's head, because you don't have to starve. You don't have to make a ton of money, and I'm not so sure about being famous. And as an artist, I certainly know there are, but at some point I let go of that a long time ago. Just being grateful, to be able to draw, and is awesome. And also getting rid of the idea that, was another phase. All these different phases and things I've had to learn is, thinking that you're really that good. It's like there are so many artists who are spectacular, and they don't even think that they're that good. It's like, we all bring something individual. We all are individual, bring something unique to the table. And I think that if you are, you got to get that out in front of people. You have to have ambition and tenacity. You can go to the nicest schools in the world. Nobody's going to teach you ambition and tenacity. So you got to sit down and you draw your butt off, or paint your butt off, or dance, or play your guitar, or whatever you're going to do. And I think when you do that long enough, you kind of can't help but get good at it. Good meaning, in your own special, unique way, so that people will notice you.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. Yeah. Yeah. I once saw this comic. I cannot remember for the life of me who drew it. And if anyone listening to this knows what I'm talking about, let us know, and I'll add it to the link section of the post associated with this episode. But I saw this comic where there was this kid, and the balloon where he was, where there's supposed to be text. Again, I don't know how to call this in English. The speech bubble of the of the kid was like all of these crazy and colorful shapes, and then there was adult that just had like black lines, and then the kid was an adult, and all of those colorful and weird shapes were actually now just waves, and a bunch of adults just had lines. And as the kid grew older, everything became lines, and he was in a world full of lines. So I think that really illustrates what you were saying, that growing up we hear so much of do's and don'ts and cans and cannots that
right.
Eventually we grow up to believe things that are not even true. But if you hear it often enough, they do become true. Right.
Yeah, you can just get outside and in a silent, get somewhere in a silent place and just think about what you really like to do, and what you can do. You got to kind of block everything out, or you can try living in a bubble like I have for a while. That works too. But then then you're out of touch with reality, and maybe that's not such a good thing. But a lot of that stuff comes from, and people they don't all mean to be mean or they're just voicing what's happened in their life. It's all around us. So
it's sympathy. This is why I love Etchr. This is why we're trying to just shift the narration and be like, you can do it if you want it. And again, like you said, ambition and tenacity. If you do want it, you can do it. Anyway, I can go on a rant for an hour about this, but probably enough. We can take more of this rant in the comment section alongside everybody else. But yeah, so moving forward, you were a kid. Yeah. You love this.
Yeah.
When did you realize you could make that into a job, or how did that go?
I don't know if I ever realized I could make it a job. I was just looking back now. I was just scrambling, just afraid. Really, it's really a fear that sort of drove me, because I was just afraid that I was going to do all this talking and not be able to, put it together. I was very fortunate to have had a high school teacher who guided me in the right direction, and I had, after that, I started drawing for my local newspaper, just editorial cartoons that would about town politics. And I did that at 15 years old, all through high school. They paid me to draw once a week. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that turned into doing political cartoons, and I'm for a long time. And then I self-syndicated my Connecticut state political cartoons into other publications out there, and people would pay anywhere from $25 to $55 a month to get a package of stuff. And I had a lot of newspapers that signed up, and that was all well and good. But I wanted to get a job as a political cartoonist. And looking back now, I think there were a couple things that just weren't working. And the first thing was that it was always black and white and in a box, and the topics that I would draw on just became redundant. Seemed like I was doing the same thing over and over again. And I probably have ADD anyway, so that would inevitably, if I had gotten a job, it would have been a disaster. But I had a art director that I worked with at the Hartford Business Journal who said, "Hey, would you want to do a color cover?" I'd never done anything like that, and I did a cover. I think it was on hedge funds or something about it was I used that money to invest in postcards, and then did another one and used that money, and I sent. And at some point, the Wall Street Journal contacted me, and I did a job or two or three for them. I can't remember. And it seemed like after they called, then I received some assignments from Newsweek. I did a cover for Newsweek magazine, which was really cool, and New York Times and all kinds of stuff. That's sort of a little interesting nugget right there, is how that worked. I guess without realizing it, I invested in myself, and I knew this because of the other illustrators, successful artists that I hung out with. They showed me the way. I was a little kid, they were all 30s, 40s, 50s, a lot of them even 60s and 70s. People who still have syndicated comic strips, and so that helped guide me. I think so a little bit of investing in yourself, you gotta do that. It's really hard too. Somebody tells you, well, you could be in this book and it's only $2,700. It's like, that's a lot of money, and you have to really believe in yourself. And I thought postcards that was a better start, because it wasn't as much, and you could buy a mailing list to art directors and send out postcards maybe 4 or 5 times a year with different images. And that kept going for a long time. Maybe I'd have, 1 or 2 jobs a week, and maybe I wouldn't have any. I worked in an art studio, where they did a lot of licensed products, and I could do some just background. I wasn't very good, but I could do background stuff, pick up trash or whatever I needed to do to be in that, and I ended up learning how to use a brush really well, and ink with a brush. And I think that to be able to pick up and use a brush is one thing, but I must have practiced a whole lot, because I could pull lines that were all even and really thin at the end. And ended up working with Archie Comics for a number of years, and DC Comics, and then that was that helped pay some bills. And I think it's just looking back on the whole thing, it's just, if you're an artist, a musician or whatever, you're not going to just be able to maybe. I'm not saying you can't, but the odds are just being able to do exactly what you want to do. It's going to take some time, so just keep yourself in the industry. So if you have to do comic books, but you're not a comic book artist, then you're going to do it. If you have to help somebody on a comic strip you're still in the industry, and I think that's very important too. I have met artists who have, asked me, how can I become an illustrator, and maybe a job cropped up where they could, paint a window or something, and they didn't want to do it. It's like, well, you gotta keep at it and stay in the industry, whatever that means, whether you're going to draw political cartoons for a little bit, or illustrations or comic books or whatever, and then eventually I think you get to a place where you can put your name on your own art and feel a lot more proud about what you do.
I think that makes a lot of sense, especially, I mean, if you look at it this way, art is something that you can do as a job, and it's a lot of work, or you can do it as a hobby. And I'm not saying it's not a lot of work either, but it's way less pressure because you do not depend on it for the money. But it is something that you can be really good at and be a hobbyist. And that's great. And I'm glad that art is something that everyone can do. If you want to be, I don't know, a doctor, a plumber, an architect, you cannot be a doctor as a hobby. You cannot be maybe you can do like basic work stuff around your house, but if you want to, you cannot be a plumber as a hobby. So there's a lot of difference between creative jobs and other kinds of jobs in that aspect. So maybe that contributes a bit to the ideology for better wordings of how can you be an illustrator? Well, you are already painting. The question is, how much money do you want to make, and how good do you have to be at what specific kind of art making to be where you want, right? So that's the part that takes a lot of work, because when you go through art school to med school, I mean, I don't know how it is over here, but here's like 8 or 10 years of med school until you're actually a doctor. That's a lot of time practicing without making any money. With art, you can start practicing and make a little bit of a money. Like, I painted a window for a flower shop when I was in college. Mm-hmm. That was fun, and I made like $50 or something. It was zero. It was not a lot, but hey, it helped to pay for transportation to and from school. So there's, I don't know where I'm getting at. I'm just like, I just felt like.
Well, I think you just kind of keep going, whether you want to, and I think the labels are another thing too that can really constrict artists. We're not, we say weekend artist or professional illustrator. It's like, I don't know. I guess I'm a professional illustrator. Sometimes I don't draw at all because I'm not feeling anything. So I guess maybe during those weeks I'm not. I don't know. I just think that if you keep working on something, whether you're going to work on it on the weekends, after work, eventually you're going to get good at it. And like, again, how good, it doesn't matter. If you feel it and it's on paper and you kind of keep going, you're going to end up developing a style, whether you like it or not. And then if you can put that out there in social media, like we used to put stuff out in postcards, and I don't know if that's still even an effective thing anymore, but social media is great. It's almost like the same thing, and you can do it at a fraction of a cost if it costs you anything at all, just so I think that's important too, so anybody who's watching this interview, it doesn't matter if you stay home and you just practice it after work or on the weekends. You don't have to say I'm a weekend artist. It's like, you're an artist. You're practicing, and then I guess, at some point you're going to get jobs. You just kind of have to have that tenacity and ambition and keep going,
Yeah, for everyone listening, you are an artist. So you can go out there, and when people ask you what you do, you can say it out loud. I am a freaking artist, because you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the fact that we have to say that is just.
Why does it feel wrong? Why does it? I had a friend once ask me, can I say out loud that I'm an artist because I don't feel like one? And I'm like, girl, you've been painting ever since I know you, like years. Like, why are you not an artist?
Yeah, no, that's too bad. What is an artist could be, anybody, right? Some art, musician, anybody who sits down and plays music, or, dances, or writes, poetry or whatever. It's all an artist. There is a lot of artists in a lot of us, and some of us label ourselves artists and some don't, but yeah. So
there you go.
Balance.
Go ahead.
Balance is an important thing too. I think in all of that is balance. There are a lot of I'll see a lot of things on social media. People will say, "Oh, you gotta draw every day," and I think that's awesome. And if you can practice drawing every day, that's fantastic. But balance is important. I used to draw every single day. If it's an assignment or a sketch or whatever, it was probably 8 days a week. At some points I was very busy, and but there was no balance there. And now, I think just with time, I've learned that balance is important to get away from the drawing board. And what ends up happening is I get so excited. I still have that fire burning inside me that really wants that job, right? And we all feel that. It's like, I really want to do this, and that creates excitement when you have that balance. When you're not, it's something you do often. Maybe every day, maybe you take a break, but you have to have other things in your life to balance that out, because that's how you're going to get that inspiration to come back and draw whatever that magnificent thing you are going to draw, on paper is going to be, or paint, whatever. I say draw because I draw a lot by paint too. It's like, it's kind of hand in hand, but So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym and work out the same muscles every single day, because that's going to drive you to exhaustion, right? Exactly, you hurt yourself. You have to rest up. And reading about how to, do proper weightlifting will help you do better weightlifting as well. So you can be an artist and not draw every day, because you can read about it. You can pay attention to other people's works and learn from that. So yeah, balance. Love it. Okay, speaking about drawing and painting, keep telling us about your career. So you were doing all this art for DC and the New York Times, and what happened next?
Yeah, I've done that most of my career. In 2014, I wrote and illustrated my own book called Brewology, an illustrated dictionary for beer lovers. Skyhorse Publishing in New York City bought it, and they published it. And I think it's in a few different countries now. It's translated and into. Wow. It was very cool. It's on Amazon. You can pick it up. It's not a plug, but
no. I'll link to it in the comments, the blog post.
I guess it is a plug, but but it was. I had this. There's another great thing for a really great tip I think somebody gave me one time, is that when you have ideas, write them down in a book and put them away, because that idea that I got for writing that book happened when I was 22 years old, and I didn't start working on that until I was 44. Wow. And that's amazing, because there were those years I look back and I thought, boy, this is still a pretty good idea. So ideas, for artists are very important, even if we just write them down really quick and you don't have time to do them because something's going on at work and you're really busy, or you're not in that right time frame in your life, whatever. Put it down, write it down in a book, and come back to it, because that's and then everybody wants to know, how did you get that idea? It's like, well, I got this idea when I was a long time ago brewing beer, whatever, and that can be really helpful, because I can't tell you how many times, even now, I as much as I write things down, I remember I'll be sitting at sitting in the car driving somewhere, and I think I come up with a good idea, and then it's only when I get home I say to myself, I forgot to write it down when I was parked, and now I can't remember.
It's gone. Yeah, I had that so many times.
Yeah, right. So write those down. So I did that book and sold a lot of prints. I never really thought about selling prints before. It was my mom who said, you should be selling prints, and wow. I started selling them. I probably sold more prints than I have. Easily sold more prints than books, and I will never not sell prints anymore. And that's the other thing too, weekend artists, whatever one you want to call. Listen, you sit down and make an incredible image, I'm going to buy that image because it inspires me. That's life. So, if you're somebody out there who's thinking about sitting down and painting, it's letting they feel like, oh, what can I do? You can do a lot just sitting there and painting something, and maybe you finish a painting in a month and then you make a nice print of it, or you have a digital download of it, or something like that. There's little nuggets that you can do along the way, and those nuggets end up becoming giant, and then you're on your way, and then somebody says, how did you get from point A to point B, and that's the story. So after the beer book, that was, the magazines were trickling off, and and I kept going and creating different products and getting a lot more commissions from not magazines, but outside commissions from people who would, want me to draw logos or just anything, something for of them, pictures of them or, their houses or whatever. And it's, just kind of, I kind of like that more now too. I've turned down jobs, never used to turn down any jobs. And that's a new thing. It's like turning down jobs is really nice because now you can be sure I can be sure to put my name on something that I get behind, and that feels really good. And I'll tell you, when you're working as an illustrator for publications, I wish all those drawings would, would be amazing and go into my portfolio. But the truth is that hardly any of them got in my portfolio because I had to do them so fast, or I was under pressure, or, so there's something said about somebody who gets to come home from work and doesn't have that pressure on the weekends or whatever, and just gets to make beautiful art. That is, as a great way of meditating, just, finding yourself in those drawings. And, so anyway, that brings us to, fast forwarding from the book until now. I've worked on some projects, and I'm excited to be writing for Etchr, and soon to be, doing some workshops with Etchr. I've taught before, I wouldn't say I would call myself a teacher, but maybe I've done it enough to know that I can teach. And I really look forward to showing people what I know. And I bet you I could probably learn from some of the people that will take my class too. So we'll kind of figure it out together.
To be honest, I can not wait for your workshop because you do beautiful ink work, and I am trying to get better at my ink work. And just reading your website for a second, I was really inspired, and I cannot wait to see how you do the ink, because I need to up my game for my children's book. Speaking of teaching and such, guys, so at the day of this recording, the plan is you are listening this interview now, because on the day this episode came out, this Friday, the free online demo will be with Mark, with you. So yeah, if you're listening to this episode right now, make sure to go to our YouTube channel, and all of the links will be on the post associated with this episode. And go there, subscribe to the channel so you guys get a notification when we go live this Friday. Is it at noon for you?
I think it's at noon or 12:30, but definitely check the Etchr website, and they'll have to check the Facebook page. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's noon EST. That's my 5 p.m. London time. So yeah, you guys should come and see Mark. Well, what will you be doing on the workshop, so we can just share a teaser?
Great question. I have no idea.
We are recording this way in advance, by the way. We have plenty of time, so don't get discouraged.
Yeah, no, we'll do something fun. I don't know. I'm going to try to find something that's
ink and watercolor.
Oh, definitely ink and watercolor. Definitely, that's what I'm most comfortable doing, and something that's inspiring, that anybody can sit down and see how I do it themselves, and
And fun, because you do the most expressive cartoons, and if I was gonna tell you what you would do if I had that power over everything, I would want to learn more about how you do your wonderful characters, because they are so full of life and they are so unique, and I can look at all of your characters and I can tell they're yours, because there's like something, it's uniquely yours. There's no way I can get it wrong. And I'd love to know how you plan for those beautiful characters, and how you go about inking, and where to make the ink thicker and when to make it thinner, and how you plan the watercolor. Actually, we can talk a little bit about it and just have a sneak preview of the demo for this Friday, and I can learn a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about how you work with ink and watercolor? Just a quick overview.
Yeah, so I used a dip pen for years, and something like this.
If you're watching the audio version only, come to YouTube so you can actually see the.
And you put a nib in the end, and you dip it, and the reason that I use those nibs is because you can get a varying line, something that's real thick, real thin, bouncy. I love that look.
Do you use flex nibs so you can control the width of the? Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I'm doing.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Like a zebra G-nib.
Yep.
Or this, I just picked up one of these. It's called a Browse Rose or something like that.
That one I don't know. The zebra I do. It took me forever to figure out there were flexi nibs because all of the nibs you see out there are like 0.5 millimeters or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, how do I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Flexi.
So I recently started using, I found a fountain pen where I could put the zebra G-nib into, and it works really, really well. In fact, my next blog for Etchr is on fountain pens, and you can find, you can find you can find out these pens. It took me a while. I spent really, a couple $100, probably a lot more than that. It's just a lot easier to digest.
Don't think about it. Yeah, do not think about it.
Right, but I did find a pen that works really well. I'm very happy with, and when it does get clogged, it's so easy to clean. I just feel like it's a great relief to have found that. So I use those pens, waterproof ink, and not all inks are waterproof. I think I'll talk about that in this blog, and maybe even do a separate blog on waterproof inks, because it seems like the companies now want to say waterproof, and they're really not waterproof. I mean, if you put a line on a piece of paper and you come back to it the next day and you start coloring and your yellow's got some beautiful black in it, it's like, sorry, I just feel like they ought to be chastised for doing that. It's like there are some artists who need waterproof ink, and I know what I use, and I don't know that we can say that on here, but it's waterproof. It's not going anywhere, and I use that for all my fountain pens, and in the times if I do use a dip pen, which I don't use so much anymore, I'll use that ink with everything. It took me a while to figure out my painting palette. I used to just paint with, I used to, like, when I didn't know really how to color, I used to use every color. I probably had a palette of 96 colors and just colored sure, until you learn that, you only really need a few colors. And I think I have, 14 or 15 colors right now. And that includes like, a gray and a white. So I don't really have that many colors. And when I'm trying to, and then we try to weed those down to a very transparent, because I might get so it just comes from you might get a really nice line on a piece of paper, and it's like, it just really looks good. And then you put a yellow over it, and the yellow cakes on top of that line, and you're like, now I got to go over it, and you'll never quite retrace that line. So I got the colors that are transparent that I use, and I'll typically just do a quick pencil sketch and then fine tune it in ink. So fine tune it in ink, and then I don't ink everything. Sometimes I'll draw with the color, just to create some different variations. And that's pretty much my process. I love to use good paper. I never realized, it was a long time, not all paper is equal. And I'm not going to mention any brands, but I'll tell you what, I found the Etchr sketchbook, which is initially how, I think it was Mar that contacted me. If she does the marketing part of that, I found the Etchr sketchbooks and sent a review, and it wasn't too long after that we got together, and those sketchbooks are 100% cotton, and it is a treat. And it's fabulous to work on that. So in addition to the Etchr sketchbook, I'll draw on illustration board because it's nice and sturdy and it doesn't warp when I'm working with it. And also watercolor blocks are fantastic because it holds your drawing down in place while you're working. So I'll use that. I don't use little single sheets of paper because there's too many. It creates too many mountains when I use water, and then there's valleys and rivers in city streets that I'm doing. So it doesn't make any sense, right? So it's just So that's it. I'm always, I'll tell you one thing I'm always working on is I'm always learning, and I've learned so much from reading the blogs that you post on Etchr. I'm very proud to be part of this whole thing, and learning how to ink. I'm still learning how to ink, even though I inked for comic books.
That's the curse of an artist, Mark. It's like there's always something to learn. Always.
Yeah, still learning. It's just never quite there. It's never quite right, but it's I've become happy with good enough.
You're really good. You are really good. Someone said to me 20 minutes ago that some artists are so good and they not see it themselves. I wonder who.
All right, good call. Touche. Yeah, well, that's you're right. Maybe that's the curse of an artist. I think that I'll give that some more thought. You're probably right. When you do something enough and you do it all the time, you kind of can't help but get better at it.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. So.
Any advice or last words to leave to our audience before we wrap up?
Just careful about the seeds that are planted in your head. You don't want them to sprout. Keep positive. Positive. There's, we don't say starving artists because you don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to be the greatest. Just get your stuff out there and, on social media, create your page, and other people can come and look at all the beautiful work that you've created, and they can say, gosh, this fits. I could use something like this, and you keep on keeping on, and you'll get jobs, if that's what you desire to do, will come, or keep on keeping on and sell your own art, in prints or galleries or however. Stay positive, ambitious, and some tenacity, So.
No shame.
What does it mean to be an artist? Are you comfortable calling yourself one? Why or why not? Please let us know in the comments section of the post associated with this episode at etchrlab.com/brewer. That's etchrlab.com/BREWER. And see you on September 18th at the free live demo. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at etchrlab.com/demos to stay in the loop. Like the podcast? Help us support the show by subscribing and giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts at etchrlab.com/go/Apple. See you in the next episode, and until then, let's make more art.